Hello, everyone. This is Sierra Hatfield, Policy Analyst at the Council of State Governments headquarters here in Lexington, Kentucky. I staff the Smart Government Subcommittee of CSG's Future of Work National Task Force. The Smart Government Subcommittee is researching how state governments can implement new technologies for better service delivery without losing the human element that defines public work. I'm here today with Stephanie Dedmon, Tennessee's Chief Information Officer, who will help us answer the latter. Through the implementation of cyber trainings and employee surveys, Stephanie has managed to turn her department into an engaged and educated place to work. I'm going to allow her to take as much time as she needs to tell us the story of why these initiatives became necessary and any improvements she can see as a result. So if that sounds good to you, Stephanie, I'd like to start by asking, why is talent development so important for Tennessee's IT sector?
Thanks, Sierra, and I appreciate the chance to speak on this webinar today and share our story in Tennessee in hopes that it's helpful to others. The reason why talent development is so important to us is for a couple of reasons. So one, like so many areas of the U.S., the competition for talent in Nashville and Middle Tennessee is very high. We compete with a number of sectors to recruit top talent for our teams and our initiatives. Equally, retention is important. So once we hire the resources, we want to be able to keep them and to grow them, to grow their careers and grow their capabilities to further enable us to serve our customers. So retention is key. And then lastly, I'd say customer service. We have to be able to advance and develop our workforce to continue to provide great customer service to our customers, which really are primarily the state agencies that we provide IT services to. In some cases, the actual citizen is our end customers, but more often than not, our customers are really the agencies who are providing government programs and services to our citizens. So those, in my opinion, and for us, those are really the top three factors as to why talent development is so important for us in Tennessee.
Okay, so what are some things that Tennessee's been doing to develop this talent a little bit more?
Sure. So we have, over the last 3 to 4 years, actually been consolidating the agency IT staff into our central IT group. We did that for a number of reasons. One is for consistency in how we deliver, and others is to provide, other reasons we did that is to provide more career development opportunities for our staff, to be a part of a larger IT organization that is 100% focused on IT, provides more either lateral or upward career development, career advancement and career development opportunities. And so really as part of consolidating that workforce, that's led us to a number of things. One is kind of simultaneously, we've been really focused on developing what we call our next gen IT workforce. And so that was really looking at our IT job classifications and recognizing that they were pretty outdated, not very current as it relates to current technology and future technology. So we went through a process to develop all new IT job classifications. We do that through a formal process with our Department of Human Resources. Requires pretty extensive look at what are the knowledge, skills, and abilities for those positions. We were able to increase our salary grades as a result of creating all new IT job classifications. But equally, we at the same time did a competitive procurement to build what we call our IT Academy. And so that was in recognition that to give people access to these new job classifications, we needed to provide training to go along with what jobs folks aspire to. Because they were new IT job classifications, there wasn't a mapping process that said, if I'm X today, then I'm going to be X plus 1 tomorrow. It was truly, the new positions were truly about the workforce we needed not necessarily the workforce we had, but we believed we had a responsibility to provide training for people to aspire to those new positions. So we developed a number of curriculums that did pace out career advancement opportunity and what the training to go along that would look like. So IT Academy provides both classroom and online classes to only IT personnel in our state. We received funding for it, so we do not charge anyone for that training. And that's, I think, been a retention strategy and helped us definitely continue to develop our workforce. A couple of other things we've done real briefly. So from a cybersecurity standpoint, we actually require all state employees to complete an online cyber training course every year. And that's partly a little bit about career development, but certainly also about cyber awareness for our workforce. And then I'd mention cloud. So we in the state of Tennessee are working on our cloud migration strategy. We like to say we're cloud smart and definitely not cloud first. We want to learn from others and really go about cloud migration in a well planned out manner. So we've also been looking at the training that's needed to advance our workforce in jobs like architects, network engineering, and application admins, and what it looks like to support our environment in a cloud environment, really a hybrid, so both cloud and on-prem. So that's another area that we've been working on, talent development.
Okay, so you spend all this time and resources kind of developing not just IT talent, but also, you know, cybersecurity training for all state employees. So something else that the subcommittee has been kind of researching is the idea of kind of revamping the culture surrounding public work. And, you know, the private sector kind of offers a little bit more leniency, a little bit more benefits. And so we're kind of looking at how the public sector can kind of catch up in that regard. And I think that you had mentioned to me before we hopped on the phone today that Tennessee has something called alternative workplace solutions. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, definitely. So, and AWS, or Alternative Workplace Solutions, as you mentioned, Sierra, is not just focused on our IT workforce, but across all of state government. Was an initiative that was started, probably around 8 years ago by our previous administration for some of the same reasons in terms of retention and recruiting. How do we compete with the private sector? And so that was creating a formal work from home program that provides training for what it means to be both an employee and a supervisor in a work from home situation. So there's training provided to employees, supervisors, and managers because it does require a different management style. From an IT perspective, it has required new tools and techniques. So, you know, online tools, access to VPN or virtual private network access. So basically making sure we had the technology tools to promote collaboration in a virtual way because folks were working from home. As I mentioned, it's a formal process that's really administered by our Department of Human Resources. There is policy, there are expectations, training I mentioned. There's documentation of an agreement about responsibilities and expectations. But agencies are given the leeway to figure out how to implement it given the work that they do. And so we certainly recognize there are types of work, excuse me, that aren't always conducive to a work from home environment, but definitely an encouragement to look for those areas in the workforce where work from home can work. In most cases, people either work from home 3 days a week and are required to be in the office the other 2, or vice versa. There are some situations where it's 4 days at home and maybe 1 day in the office. I think we've learned that, and now let me say, IT or my team was really an early adopter of work from home, because there are so many IT roles that do lend themselves from, kind of heads down working, working remotely, working on your own. But certainly then, we believe that the culture we're promoting does certainly require and promote collaboration, interaction, teamwork, team support, and team communications. And so it has been a big retention strategy and recruiting strategy for us. I actually have been surprised, at least in the Metro Nashville area, when I meet with some of my peer CIOs who work in the private sector. I'm always sort of surprised to learn that this is, in some cases, an area where at least we right now are out ahead of some of our private sector peers, in that they may be doing some work from home, but it's not formal. They don't provide the training, don't necessarily set expectations. So I've been pleasantly surprised to learn that this is an area where it does help us compete, I think, here in the Middle Tennessee marketplace, because we can promote it as something that we try to make work where it makes sense.
That sounds great. So the subcommittee kind of has this idea that if you invest in talent development and if you invest in workforce culture and keep everyone happy, engaged, educated about the work they're doing, that you have to have that element before you can even think about some optimization processes or try to streamline certain services. So I'm curious if you have anything that you'd like to highlight that's kind of come out of this talent development that's helped Tennessee work towards some optimization.
That's a good question, and I don't know that I'm going to be able to answer it directly, but I'll definitely share some thoughts that are, I think, somewhat along the same lines. We definitely agree and believe that, creating a culture of collaboration and I guess we believe that if we invest in employees and their career development, that it pays back in terms of retention and then customer service. Some of the things I mentioned at the very outset of this discussion. And we additionally are early in the process of really trying to develop a more, I'll call it a career development process, which it's still talent management, but it's more about individual attention, certainly for your rock stars or your high performers, where you sit down and have a very formal process and discussion of career development to say, what are the particular roles that someone might be that an employee is interested in to consider, a year down the road, 3 years down the road, et cetera. What interests them about those roles? What skills are they in need of to potentially get to be considered for those roles? And then a formal documentation of how that supervisor or manager is going to help that employee get to that level. Now, I'm a firm believer that employees need to own their own career development. I believe implementing a formal process that facilitates that and definitely identifies where the employee has to be accountable and what the employee needs to be responsible for, but then also saying, here's where the supervisor can help that person get there. I think that shows a real investment in our employees and their importance and our willingness to invest in them. But it is much more the employee's responsibility than the supervisors. Again, the process, I think, just facilitates the whole discussion. So for us, that is something we are embarking upon, and I, hope to be able to share great success stories and improved retention, a year or 2 years down the road. But I believe that it is it's certainly a focus for us, and I think the right investment in our people and how to get them to the next level.
Right.
So does that help some answer your question?
Yes, no, that was great. I do have a couple of more questions. So the first is we've talked a lot about creating this culture just for the employees, but I would kind of like to take that a step further and ask, has this idea of collaborative, just collaboration, has that manifested across different agencies? Like, does Tennessee have data sharing resources or just sharing resources across agencies?
We do. And so a couple of things come to mind on the collaboration front. One thing I'll kind of explain is that as part of the IT staff consolidation that I mentioned earlier, is that we organized our teams into what we call 5 business domains. And they are, as you might imagine, focused on similar government programs or similar government agencies. So for example, health and social services is one business domain. Law, safety, and correction is another. And so we are, I think, achieving a higher level of collaboration because we bring the agency leadership together of those agencies within a business domain. So for example, in health and social services, that is our Department of Human Services, our Department of Children's Services, our Department of Health, our Department of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities, not to list them all, but you can see the business scope and impact. And so as we bring them together to try to innovate, understand their business challenges, try to create a culture of leveraging IT in those how do we solve business problem discussions, we see a higher level of collaboration and as important, a higher level of a willingness to consider enterprise solutions. So instead of us having 4 or 5 medical record systems, striving to work together to see if we can leverage one. Now we're still we have some ways to go. I was going to say we're in our infancy. Maybe we're in our toddler years. Another example of that is licensing systems. I think we have in our state probably 5 or 6 different licensing systems, and there's reasons for that. But under this consolidated model, we have more ability to help agencies see the benefit of an enterprise solution, and that also comes from the leadership in the governor's office. And we have a chief operating officer in our state, and he very much supports and understands the benefit of more enterprise solutions. And instead of having multiple examples of a particular business system, trying to get to one, if not one, certainly fewer than 6 or 7. So that's an area where we have seen collaboration. You mentioned data sharing. We are working on a model where we promote and really almost mandate data sharing across our agencies. It's in some states are certainly farther along, at least from my research and experience, but we have a real opportunity to help agencies understand the potential benefit of pulling together multiple types of data to try to solve problems, to look for ways to solve problems that don't really surface when you're looking at your problem only from your perspective. And so we actually have a couple of pilots in process of working with several agencies to pull the various data sets together, actually asking the vendor community to help demonstrate the capability of data analytics and how, not only does it give you a different view of the data, but like I said, gives you a whole new perspective on different ways to use that data. So data sharing is another example of where we're really beginning to work on the culture, encourage, and help help our agencies and business program leads understand the true value of data analytics and data sharing across agencies. It's a journey. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon, as they say. And but I think sticking with it, just staying on course, staying on point with why do we need to do this, and encouraging that collaboration is, I think, key to where we think we can see real value and benefit.
Right, because even as you get out of, I think you called it your toddler days, or the beginning stages, there's always going to be another goal, something else that can be consolidated, something else that can, if it's just a little bit smaller, a little bit more manageable, then it can really help provide these services.
True, yes.
So I have one last question coming directly from one of our subcommittee members. I'll just read it. It says, a former CIO in my state says, you are either the CIO or you hate the CIO. So is that the case in Tennessee?
I'd like to think not, actually. I do think that in the past, that across many states, I can see where IT was seen as potentially, a barrier, or the people who tell us we can't do something. I think those days have to be behind us, and you may be familiar with a concept that is, I think, gaining popularity and potential, which is really what they call CIO as a broker. And so what that means, and what we're looking at in Tennessee, is what are the functions or the services that we centrally need to continue to own, either because of data security, or we can do it cheaper, better, faster, or just whatever the case may be. And conversely, what are those services that we should broker the services from somebody else and potentially outsource? And I'm not talking about major outsourcing. I'm talking about pieces of things that we should have a vendor do because they can do it cheaper, better, faster. That doesn't mean IT, the state IT group is any less valuable. It means we potentially need different skills. We need vendor management, contract management, service management. But we are essentially somewhat like a contractor to our agencies. And so if someone else can do it better and we bring that service to them, that's great. I mean, they get better service. They appreciate us because we brought a better service to the table. So it's sort of a long answer to your question to say, I absolutely believe the CIO role is changing in state government. I believe it's more about relationships and problem solving and bringing the best partner to the table to deliver a service than measuring it, making sure, checking in, measuring, providing metrics, quality checks. Are we meeting the objectives? Are we providing the service in the best way that we can at the best cost? And sometimes that's going to mean a vendor potentially doing it instead of state employees. Now, all that said, we're still very much in the analysis of growing that. I think cloud is a first step because in all fairness, cloud is a type of outsourcing. It is moving on-premise services to a vendor environment. And so I just believe that the CIO role is more about who can provide the best services and then brokering that in a cost-effective manner and then making sure we deliver what we say we're going to do.
Right. And even as this position kind of evolves, because, we have really no idea what's coming in the future of cybersecurity or accessibility in terms of digital services for citizens. And it's okay to, think that change might be a little hard sometimes, or it might be scary.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, well, Stephanie, thank you so much for being here. And if there is anything else that you'd like to say to the Smart Government Subcommittee as we continue our conversation around how to best develop the talent needed to run these programs and services to kind of enhance public service delivery?
I appreciate the chance to talk and share our story and some of our thoughts and ideas. I think the only thing I would add is that I think continuing to be competitive in terms of your workforce is absolutely about providing talent development, career development, supporting the workforce. It starts with a culture. Culture is not building a culture is not for the faint of heart, and not always, I think, seen as something that IT needed to worry about. But for us to be about customer service and about providing the best service we can, to me, in my opinion, it does start with culture and helping all of our employees understand why we exist, what we're about, what success looks like with our customers, and then helping our workforce understand and believe that the success of our customers is also about them being successful and them being happy, collaborative, and dedicated workers. So I guess I would just say that I think the culture piece can't be underestimated. It's not always a strong suit of IT people, but I think for those of us to succeed and to be seen as a positive CIO, it's certainly very important and can't be overlooked.
Well, thank you so much for those final thoughts, and I definitely look forward to working with you again in the future. Thank you so much for coming today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sierra. I appreciate it.